Hey guys, tonight we're diving deep into a world you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. A place where the sun is just a distant memory and every breath you take feels like a gamble. Imagine, if you will, waking up not to the gentle glow of your smartphone, but to the harsh clang of a bell echoing through a tiny, damp cottage. The air bites with a chill that sneaks under your threadbare blanket, and the lingering scent of damp earth and stale coal dust is already clinging to everything. Your muscles ache before you even move, a dull, familiar throb that whispers of endless toil. You probably won't survive this, but let's pretend for a moment that you're about to embark on a typical workday in a 19th century coal mine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your eyes reluctantly pry open in the pre-dawn gloom. Not that it matters much in a world perpetually cast in shadows. There's no snooze button here, no gentle alarm clock app playing calming birdsong. Just the brutal, insistent clang of the pit bell, a sound that rips through the quiet like a rusty blade. It's an auditory assault, a stark reminder that another day of backbreaking labor is about to begin. You roll out of your straw-filled mattress, the cold floorboards sending a jolt up your bare feet. Your clothes, already stiff with the grime of yesterday, are pulled on without thought, simple, rough-spun garments that offer little warmth or protection. There's no mirror to check your appearance, not that you'd want to. Your face, even this early, is etched with fatigue, smudged with perpetual coal dust. This isn't just about waking up. It's about a fundamental shift in your entire being. You're not just a person anymore. You're a cog in a vast, subterranean machine, a body destined to extract fuel from the earth until exhaustion claims you. The air outside is cold, damp, and often thick with the smell of wood smoke mingling with the ever-present stench of sulfur. Your breakfast is meager, perhaps a piece of stale bread and some weak tea, swallowed quickly because time is a luxury you cannot afford. There's no leisurely scroll through social media, no checking the news, just the silent, shared understanding among your family that the day's struggle is about to commence. You might see a child, no older than 5 or 6, already bundled up, their small face grim with a maturity far beyond their years. Historians still argue whether the sheer economic necessity of the time truly justified the widespread use of child labor, or if it was simply a cruel exploitation disguised as a necessary evil. It's a debate that lingers, much like the cold dust in the air. This early morning ritual, repeated day after day, year after year, grinds away at your spirit, leaving behind a husk of what might have been. It's not just physical exhaustion that defines your life. It's a profound spiritual weariness, a sense of being trapped in an endless, dark cycle. You might even attempt a quick stretch, only for your joints to crack like dry twigs, a stark reminder of the relentless strain your body endures. It's truly amazing how quickly the human body can adapt to suffering. Isn't it? Just imagine you're probably still half asleep, dreaming of your warm bed. But for you, the miner, the day has already begun in earnest, a testament to pure, unadulterated grit, or perhaps just desperation. One mainstream historical fact is that before the advent of reliable public transportation, miners often lived in company towns built specifically for them near the pits, making their commutes short but their lives inextricably linked to the mine. A quirky tidbit: some miners believed carrying a specific type of plant, like a 4-leaf clover or even a sprig of heather, could ward off bad luck underground. As you join the procession of silent, hunched figures, the path to the mine shaft feels less like a journey and more like a descent into the earth's maw. The air grows heavier with each step, carrying the metallic tang of damp rock and the subtle, earthy scent of coal. There's a quiet dread that hangs in the air, thicker than any fog, a collective anxiety that needs no words. You can almost feel the weight of the mountain pressing down on you even before you reach the entrance. This isn't just a job site. It's an alien landscape, a world turned upside down, where daylight is a memory and the natural order is inverted. You're not going to an office, you're going under the world. The mine entrance, often a gaping maw carved into the hillside or a rickety wooden structure housing the winding gear, looms ahead. It's a stark, uninviting portal. The sounds of the surface world, the distant bleating of sheep, the chirping of birds, begin to fade, replaced by the mechanical groan of machinery and the rhythmic dripping of water. You might notice an older miner ahead of you, his back permanently stooped, his cough a ragged bark that seems to echo the very sounds of the mine itself. This isn't a place for the faint of heart, or indeed, anyone who prefers to stand upright for extended periods. Imagine trying to explain to someone from your comfortable, well-lit present that your daily commute involves a near-vertical drop into a black hole. They'd probably think you were describing a theme park ride, not a way to earn a living. Finally, you reach the shaft itself. It's a dark, narrow opening, plunging into an abyss. The winding gear, a massive drum or wheel, slowly turns, lowering and raising the cage or corf that will transport you. This isn't a smooth, modern elevator. Oh no, this is a crude, often open-sided cage, sometimes little more than a large basket, swaying precariously as it's lowered. You step in with a dozen or more other men and boys, packed tightly shoulder to shoulder. The smell intensifies, a potent mix of damp earth, stagnant water, human sweat, and the sharp, acrid scent of blasting powder from shifts gone by. It's a smell that will soon permeate your skin, your clothes, even your dreams. As the signal is given and the winding gear groans into motion, the world above you rapidly shrinks. The last sliver of natural light vanishes almost instantly, swallowed by the overwhelming darkness. The descent is swift and disorienting. The air grows colder, then warmer, then colder again, as pockets of different temperatures are encountered. Water drips incessantly from the roof and sides of the shaft, a constant, unsettling patter that sounds like 1,000 tiny heartbeats. You can feel the vibrations of the cage rattling against the rough-hewn sides of the shaft, a symphony of creaks and groans that offer little reassurance. One mainstream historical fact is that early mine shafts were often simply dug by hand, sometimes shored up with minimal timbering, making collapses a constant danger even during descent. The speed of the descent, though perhaps only a few hundred feet per minute, feels terrifyingly fast in the absolute darkness. Your stomach lurches. You grasp the cold, rough sides of the cage, your knuckles white. Some miners would close their eyes, others would stare blankly into the blackness, perhaps murmuring a silent prayer. There's no small talk, no cheerful banter. Each person is locked in their own private dread, preparing for the ordeal ahead. It's a quiet acceptance of risk, a daily surrender to the forces of gravity and fate. A quirky tidbit is that some miners developed a peculiar sense of balance and spatial awareness in the dark, able to navigate complex tunnels with only the slightest of lights. Historians still argue whether this heightened sensory perception was a genuine adaptation or merely a desperate coping mechanism for survival. You might try to crack a nervous joke, something about hoping the rope holds, but it falls flat in the oppressive silence. It's less like a journey and more like being swallowed whole by the earth, knowing full well that regurgitation is never guaranteed. This vertical plunge is your daily reminder that you are utterly at the mercy of the mine. The descent finally grinds to a halt, not with a gentle sigh, but with a jarring lurch that sends a fresh wave of unease through you. The cage door creaks open, revealing not sunlight or open air, but more profound darkness. This isn't the kind of darkness you experience when the power goes out at home. This is an absolute, suffocating void, so deep it seems to swallow even the faint glow from your lamp. Your eyes, straining to adjust, are useless here. The only thing you can discern are vague, looming shapes and the occasional glint of water on rock. This is the heart of the mine, a place where time seems to slow and the world above feels impossibly distant. As you step out onto the damp, uneven floor, the first thing that truly hits you, besides the darkness, is the air itself. It's thick, heavy, and strangely still, laden with a cocktail of unpleasant smells. The dominant scent is always coal dust, a fine, pervasive powder that seems to coat every surface, every breath. It's gritty, metallic, and somehow sweet, a truly unique aroma that will soon become your constant companion. But beneath that, there's the cloying dampness, the faint, acrid smell of stale human sweat, and sometimes the unsettling whiff of animal waste from the pit ponies. Take a deep breath if you dare. It feels less like inhaling clean air and more like swallowing a mouthful of fine grit. You might even find yourself instinctively trying to filter it through your teeth, a futile gesture against the microscopic particles. The dust is everywhere. It settles on your clothes, your hair, your eyelashes, coating your skin in a fine, black film. It irritates your throat, causing an immediate tickle that threatens to erupt into a cough. This isn't just an inconvenience. It's a silent, insidious killer. Each breath you take draws these microscopic coal particles deep into your lungs, where they will lodge, accumulating year after year. There's no fancy air filtration here, no N95 masks, just the raw, unfiltered atmosphere of a subterranean tomb. Imagine trying to work in a perpetual cloud of fine soot, unable to ever truly clear your lungs. It's like living inside a vacuum cleaner bag after a particularly dusty session, but you're the one doing the vacuuming with your very own respiratory system. It's a truly ingenious, if horrifying, method of slow self-destruction. The only illumination comes from the small, flickering flame of your oil lamp, or perhaps a candle, held precariously in a metal holder. This isn't enough to banish the gloom. It merely pushes it back a foot or two, casting dancing, distorted shadows that seem to mock your efforts. The light source is often an open flame, a mainstream historical fact that contributed significantly to the risk of explosions. This faint glow makes the darkness feel even more oppressive, like a vast, unseen beast pressing in from all sides. You're not just working in the dark. You're part of the dark, almost indistinguishable from the coal face itself. A quirky tidbit is that some experienced miners claim they could feel the presence of different gases in the air, a sort of sixth sense developed from years in the pits, though this was more often based on subtle changes in the lamp flame or faint smells. The air itself is often stagnant, heavy, and thick with the exhaled breath of dozens of workers and animals. It's not just the coal dust. There are also the invisible gases, like carbon dioxide, methane, and carbon monoxide, silently accumulating. These gases, odorless and colorless, are your hidden enemies, far more dangerous than any rockfall. You might feel a slight dizziness, a dull headache, or a growing lethargy that you attribute to fatigue, but it could be the silent creep of poisonous air. Historians still argue whether the mine owners truly understood the long-term health implications of inhaling such air, or if they simply ignored them in pursuit of profit. Regardless, you are breathing it in minute by minute, hour by hour, your body slowly absorbing the very essence of the mine. The lack of proper ventilation means the air you're breathing today has been breathed countless times before, mixed with the effluvia of the earth and the lingering specter of danger. It's a truly dreadful cocktail for your lungs, a long, slow poison. Now that you're finally down in the darkness, the true work begins, and with it, the introduction to your faithful companions for the next 10 to 12 hours, the tools of the trade. Forget about pneumatic drills, hydraulic supports, or even a simple electric light. Your kit is decidedly low-tech, brutally simple, and inherently dangerous. These aren't precision instruments. They're blunt extensions of your own muscle and bone, designed for sheer brute force against unyielding rock. Holding them, you can feel the weight of generations of miners, each swing a testament to endless human toil. First, there's your pickaxe. This isn't just any pickaxe. It's a heavy, unwieldy beast, often with a dull, worn head and a handle polished smooth by countless sweaty palms. You grip the rough wooden shaft, feeling the calluses already forming on your hands, even if you've only been here a day. Each swing against the coal face sends a jarring vibration up your arms, a dull ache that quickly settles into your shoulders and back. The goal isn't finesse. It's impact, chipping away at the black seam. You swing it again and again, the rhythmic thud of metal on rock becoming the unwelcome soundtrack to your day. It's like trying to carve a sculpture out of concrete with a spoon. Only the spoon weighs 10 pounds and your life depends on it. Then there's the shovel. Not a sleek, ergonomic marvel, but a broad, heavy scoop, often with a short handle, designed for moving large quantities of coal in cramped spaces. You'll use it to scoop the freshly dislodged coal into tubs or baskets, your back protesting with every strained lift. The shovel quickly becomes coated in a slick layer of coal dust and damp, making it slippery and even harder to manage. You find yourself hunched over, practically crawling on your hands and knees, pushing the coal forward. It's an exercise in perpetual stooping, a dance with gravity and fatigue that you always lose. A mainstream historical fact is that early mining tools were primarily hand-forged by blacksmiths, meaning their quality and durability could vary wildly, often failing at critical moments. Beyond these basic implements, you might have a wedge and a sledgehammer for splitting larger chunks of coal, or perhaps a drill and a blasting needle if you're involved in setting charges. These drills are hand-cranked, agonizingly slow affairs that require immense physical effort to bore even a shallow hole into the rock. Imagine turning a giant corkscrew into a solid wall for hours on end, your muscles screaming with every rotation. And the blasting needle? It's a long, slender rod used to tamp down the gunpowder or early explosives, a job that always carries the risk of a premature detonation. There's no remote detonator, no safety distance. You're right there, up close and personal with the raw power of the explosion. Historians still argue whether the perceived benefits of increased coal output truly outweighed the inherent dangers of these early, volatile blasting methods. It's truly a testament to human desperation that this was considered a viable career path. The tools are not just instruments. They are extensions of the mine's brutal reality. They are heavy, cumbersome, and unforgiving, demanding every ounce of your strength. There's no soft grip, no shock absorption, just cold metal and rough wood against raw flesh. A quirky tidbit is that some miners would engrave small symbols or initials into their tools, believing it would bring them luck or help distinguish them in the perpetual gloom. A tiny act of personalization in an utterly dehumanizing environment. You might even find yourself talking to your pickaxe, muttering encouragement or curses, a strange bond forming between you and the inanimate object that dictates your survival. It's a bond forged in sweat and danger, a silent partnership in the endless pursuit of coal. This is your arsenal, your means of extracting black gold from the earth, and every swing, every scoop, every grunt of effort reminds you that you are entirely reliant on your own muscle and these unforgiving implements. As you begin the arduous task of hacking at the coal face, a small shadow moves beside you. You glance over, and your heart clenches, not from fear, but from a profound, quiet sorrow. It's a child, no older than 8 or 9, perhaps even younger, their face smudged black, eyes wide and solemn in the flickering lamplight. This isn't an anomaly. It's a grim reality of the 19th century mine. Child labor. These aren't just children playing in the dirt. They are integral, essential parts of the mining operation. Their small stature and nimble fingers exploited for tasks that adults find difficult or impossible. Their roles vary. Some are trappers, sitting alone in the profound darkness for hours. Their sole job to open and close ventilation doors when coal tubs approach, ensuring airflow or preventing the spread of gas. Imagine the crushing loneliness, the utter boredom, punctuated only by the rumble of passing wagons and the constant drip of water. Others are haulers or putters, harnessing themselves to heavy coal tubs, often crawling on all fours through narrow, low tunnels, dragging loads far heavier than their own body weight. Their knees and elbows are raw, their backs permanently bowed from the strain. A mainstream historical fact is that children as young as 5 years old were regularly employed in mines, particularly before the Mines and Collieries Act of 1842 began to restrict their employment underground, though enforcement was often lax. You watch as a young boy, perhaps just 6 years old, struggles to push a small tub of coal along a makeshift track. His chest heaves with effort, his small legs straining. There's no laughter, no childish games down here, just the grim determination born of necessity. You might offer a quiet word of encouragement or a helping hand if you're close enough, knowing that their survival, like yours, depends on endless, backbreaking work. The air they breathe is the same thick, dusty, gas-laden air that you inhale, ensuring that their young lungs are being irrevocably damaged even before they reach adulthood. It's a truly heartbreaking sight, isn't it? To see childhood stolen, replaced by a life of perpetual twilight and unceasing labor. The sheer scale of child employment in these mines is difficult for modern minds to grasp. These were not rare cases. They were the norm. Families often relied on every able-bodied member, no matter how small, to contribute to the meager household income. A quirky tidbit is that some children would carry small, carved wooden toys or pebbles in their pockets, little talismans against the darkness and loneliness. A tiny piece of their stolen childhood they could cling to. You might notice a small, worn piece of wood clutched in a young trapper's hand as he waits, patiently, in the dark. Historians still argue whether the extreme poverty of the era truly necessitated such widespread child labor, or if it was an opportunistic exploitation by mine owners who valued cheap, disposable labor over human welfare. Regardless of the debate, the immediate reality for you is seeing these small figures, barely out of infancy, enduring conditions that would break most adults. Their faces are smudged with coal. Their eyes hold a weary wisdom far beyond their years, and their small bodies are already showing the signs of lifelong physical deformity. It's a constant, gut-wrenching reminder of the brutal cost of coal, paid not just by men, but by the smallest, most vulnerable members of society. You might hear a small cough beside you, a sound too common among the young ones, a premonition of the lung disease that will inevitably claim them. It's enough to make you feel a deep, quiet rage, or perhaps just a profound weariness. As you continue your rhythmic, soul-crushing work, chipping away at the coal face, there's an ever-present, invisible threat that truly keeps you on edge: the gas. It's not something you can see or touch, but its presence is a constant, suffocating fear. This isn't just bad air. This is an explosive, potentially deadly cocktail silently accumulating around you. Forget about a friendly little fart joke down here. A single spark could turn your workspace into a fiery inferno. It's a literal minefield of unseen dangers. The most notorious culprit is methane, often called fire damp by the miners. It's lighter than air, so it collects in pockets in the higher reaches of the mine, lurking in crevices and newly exposed seams. You can't smell it, you can't see it, but it's there. And all it takes is one small spark from your open flame lamp, a strike of metal on rock, or even static electricity to ignite it. The result is a terrifying explosion, a sudden, blinding flash followed by a concussive blast that rips through the tunnels, throwing men and debris like rag dolls. A mainstream historical fact is that fire-damp explosions were a leading cause of mass fatalities in 19th century coal mines, often killing hundreds in a single, catastrophic event. Then there's carbon monoxide, the afterdamp or white damp. This insidious gas is produced by incomplete combustion, often after a fire-damp explosion or a slow-burning underground fire. It's even more treacherous than methane because it's odorless, colorless, and highly poisonous. You breathe it in, and it quietly replaces the oxygen in your blood, leading to dizziness, headaches, nausea, and eventually unconsciousness and death. There's no dramatic warning, just a slow, creeping fatigue that can quickly turn fatal. Imagine feeling a little lightheaded, thinking you're just tired, only to realize too late that your body is silently shutting down. It's the ultimate quiet killer, isn't it? Like falling asleep on a warm, comfortable couch, only it's a permanent nap. And let's not forget carbon dioxide, the black damp. This heavy gas displaces oxygen, making the air unbreathable. It collects in lower areas and can snuff out your lamp's flame, serving as a grim warning before it suffocates you. Miners often carried a caged canary, a quirky tidbit that exemplifies the desperate measures taken for safety. When the canary stopped singing or collapsed, it indicated the presence of dangerous gases, giving the miners a precious few minutes to escape. It's a remarkably low-tech, yet surprisingly effective early warning system, though hardly infallible. The little bird literally puts its life on the line for you. The constant threat of gas shapes every moment in the mine. You learn to listen for any unusual sounds, a sudden rush of air, a change in the lamp's flame. You learn to scan the walls for any signs of seepage. You develop a sixth sense for the faint, almost imperceptible changes in the air that might indicate trouble. But mostly, you live with a knot of anxiety in your gut, knowing that at any moment, the air around you could betray you. Historians still argue whether mine owners adequately invested in ventilation technology as quickly as they should have, given the known dangers of gas accumulation. Was it a lack of understanding, or a deliberate calculation of cost versus human life? You might even see a fireman or deputy making their rounds, carefully testing for gas with a safety lamp or a simple candle, the flame's behavior revealing the gas's presence. But even these experienced men make mistakes, and the gas is an unpredictable enemy. So you continue to swing your pick, to shovel the coal, all while silently praying that today isn't the day the unseen monster decides to make its presence known. Every breath is a gamble, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Even if you manage to avoid the invisible wrath of gas, the mine has plenty of other physical threats ready to put an abrupt end to your shift, or indeed your life. You're deep underground, surrounded by millions of tons of rock, and the earth, as you're constantly reminded, is an unpredictable beast. Two of its most common and terrifying manifestations are rockfalls and flooding. These aren't minor inconveniences. They are sudden, crushing forces of nature unleashed in the confined, suffocating space you inhabit. Imagine for a moment the roof above your head. It's not solid concrete. It's a patchwork of support timbers, perhaps some rough stone, and often just exposed rock. As you chip away at the coal, you're constantly undermining the stability of the immediate area. Suddenly, without warning, you hear it. A low rumble, a creak of timbers, or perhaps just a faint crack that sends shivers down your spine. That's your split-second warning. Then, the ceiling gives way. Tons of rock, jagged and unforgiving, crash down with a deafening roar, obliterating everything in their path. There's no time to think, no time to react, just the horrifying realization that you're about to be crushed. This isn't like a small piece of plaster falling from your ceiling. This is geological violence on a grand scale. A mainstream historical fact is that rockfalls were an incredibly common cause of injury and death in 19th century mines, often resulting in agonizing entrapment before eventual fatality. You might be lucky enough to hear the warning signs and dive for cover, pressing yourself against a solid wall, feeling the ground shake beneath you. Or perhaps you're caught in the deluge, the crushing weight of the earth pressing down, snuffing out your lamp, leaving you in absolute darkness, trapped and in pain. The dust kicked up by a rockfall is blinding, choking, adding another layer of terror to the immediate danger. Rescuers, if they come, might be hours or even days away, digging by hand through tons of rubble in the faint hope of finding survivors. It's a truly awful way to go, suffocating slowly beneath the very earth you sought to conquer. You might try to shout, but your voice is swallowed by the silence and the debris. Then there's the water. The earth is full of it, and mines, by their very nature, are constantly battling against subterranean springs and underground rivers. Water seeps through the rock, drips from the roof, and sometimes bursts forth in a sudden, overwhelming torrent. Imagine working in a narrow, cramped passage, when suddenly a cold, black deluge erupts from the wall, filling the tunnel at an alarming rate. This isn't just a puddle. It's a flash flood, deep underground. The water is often icy cold, thick with mud and debris, and carries with it the terrifying force of a liquid battering ram. Flooding can trap miners in dead-end passages, drown them where they stand, or simply make working conditions even more miserable and dangerous. Pumps, if present, were often rudimentary and struggled to keep pace with a major influx of water. A quirky tidbit is that some superstitious miners believed certain veins of coal were cursed, attracting water to drown those who dared to extract them. This belief, however irrational, provided a way to rationalize the arbitrary and often deadly nature of the mine. The constant dampness also weakens the mine supports, making rockfalls more likely. So, these two dangers often go hand in hand, a terrifying duo determined to claim lives. Historians still argue whether the design of some early mines, with their haphazard layouts and inadequate drainage, inadvertently contributed to the severity of these flooding events. You are caught in this brutal dance, constantly aware that the very ground you stand on, and the air you breathe, could turn against you in an instant. It's a perpetual state of vigilance, a constant scanning of the ceiling and walls for any sign of impending doom. And through it all, you still have to dig. After hours of backbreaking labor, the clang of the bell echoes through the distant tunnels, a sound that signals a brief, precious respite, dinner time. Don't imagine a cozy break room with a microwave and a vending machine. Your meal is a stark reminder of the poverty and hardship that define your existence, and it's consumed in the same dark, damp conditions you've been working in. There's no escaping the mine, even for sustenance. You find a slightly less damp spot, maybe leaning against a cold rock face or crouching in a small alcove. The air is still thick with dust, the constant drip of water a monotonous soundtrack. There's no washing up before you eat. Your hands are black with coal dust, ingrained so deeply that no amount of scrubbing could remove it. You simply make do. Your meal is likely wrapped in a cloth, pulled from a pocket or a small satchel. What's on the menu? For you, the 19th century miner, it's typically a piece of stale bread, perhaps a hunk of cheese if you're lucky, or more likely some boiled potatoes. Meat is a rare luxury, reserved for special occasions, if at all. This isn't a balanced diet, it's survival rations. The food is often cold, bland, and quickly consumed to maximize the brief break. You chew slowly, savoring each mouthful, knowing it has to fuel you for another grueling stretch. One mainstream historical fact is that the diet of working-class families, including miners, was largely carbohydrate-based and often deficient in essential vitamins and proteins, leading to widespread health issues. There's no polite chatter, no lively conversation. Most miners eat in silence, conserving energy, their faces grim and tired even as they chew. The only sounds are the quiet munching, the occasional cough, and the persistent sounds of the mine itself, the distant creak of timbers, the rumble of a distant tub. You might share a sip of water from a communal bottle or a cold, weak tea. There's no coffee, no energy drinks, just whatever meager liquid you brought down to quench your thirst. It's truly remarkable how quickly hunger can make even the most unappetizing food taste like a feast, isn't it? Though it's probably more desperation than true enjoyment. A quirky tidbit is that some miners would carry a small, lucky charm or a piece of their children's artwork wrapped carefully with their food. A tiny connection to the world above and a reminder of why they endured such hardship. You might see an old, worn photograph, or a child's crude drawing of a flower, carefully tucked away and glanced at during this solitary meal. This small act of connection speaks volumes about the emotional toll of their existence. This meager sustenance is meant to sustain you through the rest of the shift, but it feels barely enough to keep a bird alive, let alone a man performing intense physical labor for hours on end. The hunger pangs return quickly, a dull ache in your stomach that joins the chorus of aches in your muscles and joints. Historians still argue whether the inadequate nutrition contributed more significantly to the miners' poor health and shortened lifespans than the direct dangers of the mine itself. It's a chicken and egg scenario of misery, where every factor seems designed to erode your well-being. As the last crumb is swallowed, the quiet signal to resume work ripples through the group. There's no lingering, no washing of dishes. You simply stand, stretch your aching back, and pick up your tools, ready to plunge back into the relentless rhythm of extraction. The break is over, the brief illusion of comfort vanishes, and the grim reality of the mine reasserts its complete dominion over your time, your body, and your will. Your stomach might still be rumbling, but your hands are already reaching for the pickaxe. As you resume your laborious task, you become acutely aware of the air, or rather, the distinct lack of it. Ventilation in a 19th century coal mine isn't some complex HVAC system. It's a desperate, often rudimentary, struggle against the oppressive, stagnant atmosphere. The fight for fresh air is a continuous battle, and the primitive methods employed are a testament to how cheaply human lives were valued against the cost of proper engineering. You're not just breathing, you're gasping for breathable air. In many early mines, the primary method of ventilation relied on natural currents, supplemented by clever, if crude, techniques. One common method was the furnace ventilation system, a mainstream historical fact where a large fire was kept burning at the bottom of an upcast shaft. The heat from this furnace caused the air in that shaft to rise, creating a vacuum that pulled fresh air down an adjacent downcast shaft and circulated it through the mine workings. It sounds ingenious in theory, doesn't it? Like a giant, underground chimney. But in practice, it was prone to failure, inefficient, and a constant fire hazard itself. Imagine trying to ventilate a sprawling, complex network of tunnels with a glorified bonfire. Another method involved large, rotating fans, often powered by steam engines on the surface, or even by horses or human labor underground. These were designed to force fresh air into the mine or draw foul air out. However, the sheer size and complexity of the mine workings meant that pockets of stagnant, dangerous air were always present, especially in newly excavated areas or dead-end drifts. The air you're breathing might have traveled for miles, picking up coal dust, methane, and the exhaled breath of countless miners and ponies along the way. It's like trying to clear a smoky room with a single sputtering candle. You can feel the difference in the air as you move from one section to another. In some areas, there might be a faint, welcome breeze, a sign that the ventilation system is at least minimally working. But often, you step into a chamber where the air is thick, heavy, and motionless, clinging to you like a damp blanket. This stagnant air is not only uncomfortable, it's deadly. It allows gases to accumulate to dangerous levels and exacerbates the effects of the coal dust. Your lungs burn, your head aches, and a pervasive lethargy washes over you, making every swing of the pickaxe an even greater effort. You might even find yourself consciously taking shallower breaths, as if to conserve the dwindling supply of oxygen. A quirky tidbit related to ventilation is the use of brattices, canvas or wooden partitions used to direct airflow through the workings. Miners would frequently have to move or adjust these flimsy barriers, often at great risk, to ensure air reached their specific work areas. It was a constant manual effort to manage the air currents, highlighting the very hands-on, precarious nature of their existence. Historians still argue whether the slow adoption of more advanced mechanical ventilation systems was due to technological limitations of the era or simply the immense cost involved, which mine owners were unwilling to bear. The lack of proper ventilation isn't just about comfort, it's about survival. Without it, the concentration of deadly gases rises, and the risk of explosions and suffocation skyrockets. You're breathing air that has been recycled, tainted, and often dangerously depleted of oxygen. It's a constant, silent battle for every breath, a battle you are often losing. The dull ache in your chest, the constant cough, and the persistent feeling of being slightly lightheaded are all direct consequences of the air you're forced to inhale. It's a miracle anyone survives a full shift down here, let alone a lifetime. In the oppressive, all-encompassing darkness of the mine, your most vital companion is not another miner or a tool, but the fragile flicker of your lamp. This tiny source of light is literally your window to the world, your only defense against the absolute void that seeks to consume you. It's not some powerful LED headlamp. It's a delicate, easily extinguished flame, offering a mere whisper of illumination. Initially, miners often relied on simple candles or rudimentary oil lamps with exposed wicks. Imagine trying to work in a coal mine with a candle, a quaint romantic notion if you're picturing a dimly lit dinner, but a terrifying liability underground. The open flame, a mainstream historical fact, was a constant source of ignition for the ever-present methane gas, leading to countless horrific explosions. It was a trade-off. Light to see, but light that could kill you in an instant. You'd be constantly aware of your lamp, sheltering it from drafts, protecting it from splashes, knowing that if it went out, you'd be plunged into a terrifying, disorienting darkness that few modern humans ever experience. It's a darkness so profound it feels like a physical presence, pressing in on your eyeballs. Then came the revolutionary, yet still imperfect, Davy lamp or Stevenson lamp, a quirky tidbit of mining history. Invented in the early 19th century, these lamps enclosed the flame within a fine wire gauze. The theory was that the gauze would cool the flame enough to prevent it from igniting external methane, thus making the lamp safety-proof. While they significantly reduced explosions, they weren't foolproof. If the gauze became damaged, or if gas concentrations were extremely high, an explosion was still possible. You'd watch your lamp's flame intently. A sudden lengthening or a blue cap on the flame was a grim warning sign of methane, telling you to retreat immediately. It was a primitive gas detector, albeit one that relied on the very fire it was trying to contain. Your lamp provides only a limited circle of light, barely illuminating the coal face directly in front of you. The rest of the tunnel remains shrouded in gloom, stretching into an endless blackness that swallows sounds and distorts distances. Shadows dance and flicker with every movement of your head, turning familiar shapes into grotesque monsters. You learn to navigate by feel, by the subtle echoes of your own breathing, by the dampness of the walls against your outstretched hand. It's like trying to find your way through a funhouse maze, but the funhouse is actually a death trap, and your flashlight is a dying match. The small light also becomes a psychological anchor. When it goes out, even momentarily, panic can easily set in. The sudden, absolute blackness is disorienting, suffocating, and terrifying. Your sense of balance is lost, your heart pounds, and the sounds of the mine, previously muted, suddenly seem amplified and menacing. Historians still argue whether the psychological toll of perpetual darkness, coupled with the constant threat of lamp failure, contributed significantly to the high rates of mental distress among miners. It's not just a physical hardship, it's a profound sensory deprivation that plays tricks on the mind. So, you guard your lamp with your life, literally. It's tethered to your belt or held carefully in your hand, its fragile flame a symbol of your continued existence. You might even find yourself talking to it, a quiet plea for it to keep burning, just like you might murmur to a stubborn child. It's your tiny sun in a world without one, and its warmth, however faint, offers a flicker of comfort in the cold, unyielding embrace of the earth. As your lamp casts its meager light on the coal face, illuminating your backbreaking work, you become acutely aware of another oppressive force in this subterranean world, the pit boss. He isn't just a supervisor. He's the absolute authority, the arbiter of your fate, and often the most immediate source of your misery. His rule is absolute, his word law, and his presence is enough to send a chill through the already damp air. The pit boss, or overman, isn't found in a comfortable office on the surface. Oh no, he's down here with you, navigating the same treacherous tunnels, his lamp a slightly stronger beacon of authority. He's often a former miner himself, hardened by years in the pit, and perhaps even more brutal because of it. He understands the dangers, the pain, the exhaustion, but his job is to ensure coal output, no matter the human cost. His boots are heavy, his voice gruff, and his eyes miss nothing. It's like having your strictest high school principal follow you around, except he can literally fire you on the spot, leaving your family destitute. His methods of maintaining discipline are direct and uncompromising. If you're not working fast enough, if your coal tub isn't full enough, if you dare to complain, you'll feel his wrath. This could be a shouted reprimand that echoes through the narrow passages, a threat of docked pay, or even a swift kick or blow. Physical abuse, a mainstream historical fact, was not uncommon in these environments, a brutal means of ensuring compliance and maximizing output from exhausted workers. There's no HR department, no union representative, no grievance procedure. Your only recourse is to endure or to leave, which means starvation for your family. You learn to anticipate his rounds, to redouble your efforts when you hear his heavy footsteps approaching. The fear of his disapproval, of being singled out, is a constant motivator, driving you beyond your physical limits. He might carry a thick stick, not for support, but for emphasizing his points on the backsides of reluctant workers or even children. It's a truly chilling thought, isn't it? That a place already so dangerous is made even more so by the deliberate cruelty of those in charge. You might even try to make a weak joke under your breath about his charming personality, but quickly swallow it, knowing the risk is too high. A quirky tidbit is that some pit bosses developed a reputation, almost a folklore, among the miners, stories told in hushed tones about their particular eccentricities or their especially cruel punishments. These tales, passed from shift to shift, served as both warnings and a grim form of entertainment. Historians still argue whether the extreme authority granted to pit bosses was a necessary evil for managing such a dangerous and chaotic environment, or if it simply created an unchecked power dynamic that led to widespread abuse. His presence is a constant reminder that you are not your own master. You are a tool, an expendable resource in the pursuit of coal. He dictates your pace, your breaks, and ultimately your output. There's no personal relationship, no empathy, just the relentless pressure to extract more, faster. His voice cuts through the perpetual gloom, a harsh counterpoint to the rhythmic thud of your pickaxe. The weight of his gaze feels heavier than the tons of rock above your head. You might steal a quick glance at him, trying to gauge his mood, but his face is usually a mask of grim determination. He's the physical embodiment of the mind's demands, and you are entirely at his mercy. As the hours grind on, punctuated by the relentless rhythm of your pickaxe and the distant rumblings of the mine, you become intimately familiar with the insidious, long-term impact this environment has on your body. It's not just the immediate dangers of rockfalls and explosions. It's the slow, creeping deterioration of your very being. Your health isn't just declining. It's being systematically dismantled by the conditions of the pit. This isn't a job where you retire with a healthy pension and a full set of teeth. You retire, if you're lucky, with a cough that never goes away and a body that feels a century old. The most notorious ailment, a mainstream historical fact, is black lung or coal workers' pneumoconiosis. Every breath you've taken down here, every particle of coal dust inhaled, is accumulating in your lungs. Initially, it's just a persistent cough, a slight tightness in your chest. But over time, the dust literally hardens your lung tissue, making it increasingly difficult to breathe. You'll see older miners, their chests heaving with every shallow gasp, their faces tinged blue from lack of oxygen. They spit up black phlegm, a grim testament to the internal damage. This isn't just a cough, it's a slow, agonizing suffocation, your lungs turning to stone. Imagine trying to run a marathon with your lungs filled with concrete. That's the slow death awaiting you. Beyond the lungs, your entire musculoskeletal system is under siege. The constant stooping, crawling, and heavy lifting lead to deformed spines, arthritic joints, and perpetually aching muscles. Your knees are perpetually swollen and inflamed from kneeling in damp, cold passages. Your hands are gnarled, fingers bent and stiff from years of gripping tools. Many miners developed a distinctive gait, a permanent stoop, their bodies molded by the confines of the mine. There's no physical therapy, no ergonomic assessment, just the brutal reality of your body breaking down. You might try to stretch out a particularly painful cramp, only for it to snap back into place, mocking your efforts. Then there are the less obvious ailments. The perpetual dampness and lack of sunlight lead to chronic rheumatism and skin conditions. The poor diet, remember that meager lunch before? It means your body lacks the nutrients to repair itself, making you more susceptible to every illness that comes your way. An open cut or graze, easily acquired in the sharp, rocky environment, can fester into a dangerous infection in the unhygienic conditions. A simple cough can turn into bronchitis, then pneumonia, swiftly claiming lives already weakened by continuous labor. A quirky tidbit is that some miners believed eating a spoonful of lard or goose grease daily could grease their lungs and help clear the dust. A desperate folk remedy against an invisible enemy. While ineffective, it speaks to the deep anxiety surrounding lung disease. Historians still argue whether the mine owners intentionally downplayed the long-term health risks, or if their understanding of industrial diseases was simply too primitive to comprehend the full scope of the devastation. What is clear is that the life expectancy of a 19th century coal miner was significantly shorter than that of the general population. So, as you work, you're not just battling the rock, you're battling your own body, which is slowly but surely being worn down, pulverized, and poisoned by the very environment that provides your meager living. Every cough, every ache, every strained breath is a morbid reminder of the toll the mine is taking, a grim foreshadowing of the inevitable decline that awaits every man and every child who spends their days in the dark. You might try to ignore the persistent cough in your throat, but it's a constant, rasping reminder of the coal dust building up inside. Finally, after what feels like an eternity of darkness, dust, and backbreaking toil, the distant clang of the bell signals the end of the shift. A wave of collective, exhausted relief washes over the miners, palpable even in the thick air. But don't imagine a quick elevator ride up to a waiting car. Your journey home, or rather, your commute to a semblance of normal life, is almost as arduous and grim as the work itself. You're not just clocking out. You're embarking on another leg of your daily ordeal. First, the ascent. You're packed back into the creaking, open-sided cage, the same one that plunged you into the abyss hours ago. The upward journey is often faster than the descent, a jarring, rattling ride that brings with it a faint, growing glimmer. As you rise, that tiny sliver of light at the top of the shaft slowly expands, a beacon of hope, but also a stark reminder of the world you're about to re-enter. The cool, fresh air from the surface begins to mix with the stale mine air, a welcome, yet often painful, sensation on your raw lungs. You might cough more intensely now, your body trying to expel some of the accumulated dust. As the cage reaches the surface, the overwhelming brightness of even a cloudy sky is almost blinding after hours in absolute darkness. Your eyes, accustomed to the gloom, squint and water painfully. It's a jolt to your senses, a sudden reintroduction to the vibrancy of the world above. But this reintroduction isn't gentle. You emerge not into a paved parking lot, but often a muddy, coal-strewn yard, surrounded by the grime and noise of the pit head. The smells of the surface, damp earth, distant cooking fires, perhaps even a hint of fresh grass, are a stark contrast to the subterranean stench that still clings to your clothes and skin. There's no changing room with lockers and showers, no quick scrub to wash away the day's grime. Your pit clothes are often the only clothes you own for work, saturated with coal dust, sweat, and dampness. You might try to brush off some of the worst of the dust, but it's a futile effort. It's permeated every fiber. You are, quite literally, a walking embodiment of the mine. A mainstream historical fact is that miners often walked home directly from the pit, still covered in coal dust, a visible marker of their arduous profession. The journey home is by foot, often a significant trek, especially if you live in a nearby village rather than a purpose-built company town. Your body aches with a profound, deep-seated fatigue. Every muscle protests, your joints scream with each step, and your back feels like it's about to give out. You trudge along dusty or muddy paths, your lamp now extinguished, a dead weight in your hand. The silence of the walk is often broken only by the ragged coughs of your fellow miners, or the distant barking of a dog. There's no lively chat, no sharing of stories. Everyone is lost in their own exhaustion, already anticipating the meager meal and the brief respite of sleep. A quirky tidbit is that some miners, despite their exhaustion, would take a roundabout way home, just to avoid certain paths they believed were cursed or brought bad luck after a particularly bad shift. This speaks to the pervasive superstition that permeated their lives, a desperate attempt to exert some control over an uncontrollable existence. Historians still argue whether the long, arduous commutes, coupled with the poor working conditions, contributed more to the miners' overall exhaustion and shortened lifespans than any single factor. You might try to crack a half-hearted joke about the sun being too bright for your pale, subterranean face, but even that effort feels monumental. As you drag yourself towards your meager home, every step is a testament to sheer, unyielding endurance. You finally drag your weary body through the door of your humble cottage, the air inside still thick with the lingering smell of coal smoke from the small hearth. This isn't a sanctuary. It's merely a slightly less hostile environment than the mine. But the strain on your family life is evident in every creaking floorboard and every quiet sigh. The mine doesn't just take your body and your breath. It reaches into your home, shaping the lives of everyone under your roof. Your wife, if you are fortunate enough to have one, will likely greet you with a silent understanding. Her day, too, has been one of ceaseless toil. Managing the house, raising the children, perhaps taking in laundry or mending for other families to supplement your meager income. She sees the coal dust permanently etched into your skin, the slump of your shoulders, the deep fatigue in your eyes. There are no grand declarations of love or emotional outbursts, just a quiet, shared endurance. A mainstream historical fact is that families in mining communities were incredibly interdependent, with women and children often contributing significantly to the household economy through various domestic and informal labor. The children, if they're still awake, might rush to you, but their play is muted, their faces mirroring the seriousness of their environment. They know instinctively the sacrifices being made. Remember those small hands you saw down in the pit? If not in the mine itself, your children are likely working above ground or in factories, contributing to the family's survival. Their childhoods are as truncated as yours, shaped by the relentless demands of the industrial age. There's no time for leisurely bedtime stories or elaborate games. Every moment is a battle against the encroaching darkness of poverty. You might try to muster a weak smile for them, but even that feels like a monumental effort. Mealtime is a quiet affair. The same simple, unvaried food from your pit lunch might be served, stretched to feed the entire family. Conversation is minimal, mostly functional, about what needs to be done tomorrow or who is ill. Laughter is rare, a precious commodity. The constant physical pain and emotional exhaustion from the mine leaves little room for joy or lightheartedness. You might try to tell a small, silly story you heard from another miner, something about a particularly stubborn pit pony, but your voice is raspy, and the energy quickly drains away. It's like trying to host a lively dinner party when everyone at the table is suffering from the flu. The mine casts a long shadow over every aspect of your domestic life. The fear of an accident, a gas explosion, or a rockfall is a constant, unspoken dread that hangs in the air, a silent terror that your wife lives with every day you descend into the earth. Every knock at the door sends a jolt of fear through her heart, knowing it could be news of a disaster. This omnipresent anxiety permeates the home, stifling cheerfulness, shortening tempers, and deepening the lines of worry on everyone's faces. A quirky tidbit is that some mining families would hang specific charms or small religious icons near their doorframes, hoping to ward off accidents for the breadwinner. These superstitions provided a fragile sense of control in a life utterly dictated by external, dangerous forces. Historians still argue whether the close-knit nature of mining communities, forged by shared hardship, truly mitigated the severe psychological toll on family units, or if it merely amplified the collective suffering. Regardless, your brief hours at home are tinged with the perpetual knowledge that tomorrow, the mine calls again, demanding your body, your spirit, and perhaps your very life, all for the meager chance of survival. You finally stumble into bed, the straw rustling beneath your weary weight, and for a few precious hours, you find a temporary escape in sleep. But as the sun, still an alien concept, begins its slow ascent over the distant hills, the brutal reality of your life in a 19th century coal mine asserts itself once more. Despite everything, the pain, the fear, the grime, the suffocating darkness, the cycle continues. There's no easy escape, no comfortable alternative, just the grim, unyielding necessity of returning to the depths. That familiar, dreaded clang of the pit bell rips through the pre-dawn quiet, a harsh summons that pulls you from the fleeting comfort of slumber. It's not a request, it's a command, one that echoes the relentless demands of a society hungry for coal. Your body screams in protest. Every muscle aches, every joint groans, and your lungs already feel heavy, anticipating the dust and the foul air. The brief respite of sleep has done little to truly refresh you. It has merely provided a temporary pause in your ongoing battle against exhaustion. You rub the sleep from your eyes, only to feel the ingrained grit of coal dust beneath your fingers, a permanent part of your skin. You pull on the same stiff, damp clothes, their very fabric smelling of the mine. The meager breakfast is swallowed quickly, devoid of pleasure, purely for fuel. The children, perhaps a bit older now, show the same weary resignation in their eyes as they prepare for their own contributions, whether at the pit head or in the cottage. The silence around the breakfast table is heavier now, weighted with the knowledge of what the day holds. It's a silence born of shared hardship and unspoken fears. You might look out the window at the barely visible morning sky, a fleeting glance at a world you barely belong to anymore. The walk to the pit head is a familiar, painful trudge, your body already anticipating the descent. You join the silent procession of other miners, their shoulders hunched, their steps heavy, all drawn by the irresistible pull of the shaft. There's a curious sense of inevitability, a fatalism that settles deep in your bones. This is your lot, your fate, inextricably tied to the black gold beneath the earth. A mainstream historical fact is that entire generations in specific regions were defined by coal mining, with sons following fathers into the pits, creating deep-rooted mining communities with a shared, often perilous, identity. The mine entrance looms, a familiar maw waiting to swallow you whole. The cold, damp air begins to seep into your bones, and the faint, unsettling sounds of the winding gear preparing for the first descent of the day begin to register. You might try to suppress a shiver or a cough, but both are futile. This is your reality, day in and day out, until your body finally gives out or an accident claims you. There's no upward mobility in this life, no chance for a different path, just the same cycle of descent, toil, and weary return. A quirky tidbit is that some miners, despite the overwhelming bleakness, would develop a strange bond with the mine itself, a love-hate relationship with the earth that provided their living, seeing it almost as a living entity. Historians still argue whether this perceived bond was a genuine psychological connection or a coping mechanism to endure unimaginable suffering. You step into the cage, feeling the familiar lurch as it begins its descent, pulling you back into the darkness. The last glimpse of daylight vanishes, and you are once again swallowed by the earth, your life a continuous loop of dust, danger, and the relentless pursuit of coal. As the echoes of the closing cage door fade into the profound stillness of the deep earth, the relentless clatter of your pickaxe gradually softens. The metallic tang of coal dust slowly mellows into a faint, earthy aroma. Imagine the overwhelming darkness beginning to recede, not with a sudden burst of light, but as if a gentle mist were slowly lifting, revealing vague, comforting shapes. Feel the chill air of the mine warm just a degree, then another, replaced by a soft, breathable stillness. Let the tension in your shoulders begin to loosen, the persistent ache in your back slowly ease. The weight of the world, of all that relentless toil and inherent danger, simply begins to float away, like dust motes catching the last rays of a fading sun. There's no more clinging, no more struggling, just a quiet, profound sense of release. Picture yourself drifting, not sinking, through the cool, calm air, the sounds of dripping water turning into a gentle, rhythmic lullaby. Let your breath deepen, smooth out, carrying with it only the faintest whisper of a memory of the world beneath. Feel the sense of quietude settling around you, a soft blanket of calm. The long journey is over, and all that remains is the profound, soothing embrace of rest. Close your eyes, let the last lingering images of the mind dissolve, and just be. Sweet dreams.